Hello there, good to see you again. And so, first of all, definitely first things first, I apologise. Um, I don't know why I've forgotten to do a thought for the day on Monday. As in, you may be aware, you may not be aware, on Sunday evening, we have had through pretty much most of um, the lockdown, we've had a prayer meeting on a Sunday evening as well as a Thursday evening. Thursday evening is the main prayer meeting once a week, but we just had an extra one because, well, at one point I think we were doing like three a week. The point is, um, there have been less people turning up for the Zoom meeting, and that's okay. As in, I think things are beginning to kind of, I hesitate to say get back to normal because they're certainly not normal, but there were fewer people coming to the Sunday evening prayer meeting, and that was fine. It was kind of like time. I think it's had its season, and it had to. We just had to kind of decide that's it, finished, um, and that was my focus on Sunday evening. And I just forgot that I had a thought for the day to do. We've been doing them for about 4 or 5 months. Certainly, I've had a kind of summer break, but I never forgot once. I think I was late 1 or 2 days, but I never actually forgot. I got to the point where it was like 10:30. No, it wasn't as late as that. It was about tea time on Monday, and I thought, I haven't done a thought for the day today. So what I'm saying is, it's here, it's ready, and my name's Ian Cathcart, and I'm 56, and I have signs of mental acuity not being quite what it should be. Maybe lockdown fatigue is just setting in now. I'm not sure. It was it was one of those kind of, I'm too young to have a senior moment, but I've just forgotten for this thing that I've been doing for pretty much the whole of lockdown. Anyway, we were asking the question, why does God let evil happen? Why does my memory suddenly take a holiday? Um, we said that for human beings to have freedom of choice, we have to have freedom to make a good choice for it to be our choice to do good. But that means there is also the freedom that we have to make bad choices. We also said that the wars, the simple reality, loads of evidence round about us. Um, we live in a fallen world. It's not the reality that the world is fallen is something that God presents as, it's not just human beings that don't always do the right thing. The world itself is out of kilter, groaning as unto the pains of childbirth. Remember that bit? So the last one, why does God let evil happen? Why doesn't God just step in? And the answer is, because when you listen to people's stories about what it is that brought them to faith in Jesus Christ, a huge percentage of people have the kind of suffering and negative experience that one would just assume is going to make them believe that God doesn't exist at all. And yet, suffering takes them to Christ, doesn't take them away. Last of all, why would God allow suffering just so that people come to faith? Underlying question, as long as preachers keep on talking about a loving God, the question's always kind of put, well, if he's a loving God, why does he allow evil? There is an implicit question, a supposition. The stuff that's assumed and never gets said, there's a supposition that if God is a loving God, he could only possibly ever want one thing for humanity, which is good things to happen, nothing bad, everyone's nice, and the whole world just smiles at one another. There's a whole lot of people grimacing already because that's their idea of nightmare. The point is, I think you have to ask the question, what does God actually want of human beings? What would a loving Heavenly Father want for humanity? Some people would say it's God's job, if He is a loving Heavenly Father, to keep human beings happy, comfortable, pain-free, and smiling at folk. That's what they would assume a loving Heavenly Father would mean. The thing is, there is another possible answer, and God still be a loving Heavenly Father. God's purpose for human beings is to bring them to know and to love Him, because strategically, psychologically, that's the thing that constitutes the action of a truly loving Heavenly Father. Bringing them to a knowledge of Him is the most loving thing that He could do. And if, for some, that journey includes suffering, then it actually brings them to a better place. Now, I need to be clear. I don't think God inflicts suffering on people. I just think He utilizes it. He redeems it. He takes, well, I think it was Joseph, that which you intended for evil, talking to his brothers, God used for good. We live in a world where the reality of God is forgotten about more and more in Western world. It's evidenced by the kind of prosperous world, Western world that we live in, where belief is declining. Yet Christianity often thrives in places where to follow Christ is something that brings difficulty and challenge and suffering. Why on earth would anyone read a Bible, even read a Bible, let alone, short of coming to faith? Why would anyone risk reading a Bible in, say, North Korea? To have the book in your possession is deemed to be a crime. Why would a Muslim woman, I mean, there's various stories, various accounts of people coming to faith in various Middle Eastern countries. They know they will be ostracized by their family, potentially killed, because the honor that they have brought dishonor to the family, and the only way to bring honor back is to, kill them. And yet people come to faith. Why? Because people's lives speak with a degree of power and significance. People who travail through suffering but stay committed to Christ, people who come through suffering and are seen as overcomers, they speak not by words but by their behavior to other people in a way that only suffering Christians can. I know as a preacher, words are easy, but a lived out faith that contends for Christ in abject opposition to whatever it is that's thrown at them, that is an incredibly powerful thing. C.S. Lewis said, I know, I quote him, I like him, get used to it, cope, read the book, because the problem of pain is an exceptionally powerful and, more importantly, just very wise. C.S. Lewis, this is a very common quote. Everybody quotes it, but it's a really good quote. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks to us in our conscience, but shouts in our pain. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. I say again, James makes it clear we don't get to accuse God of doing evil things to bring about happy, nice end. That's, James says, you don't get to accuse God of doing that because he's perfect and he's holy and he doesn't inflict evil on you. But he will take that which we count as suffering and use it for us and our deeper knowledge of him, but he will also use it to speak to others in a way that literally nothing else gets through to folk. The reality is, people seem to get closer to God. That's not true. Some people get closer to God only through suffering. I wish that were otherwise. But it would appear that it's absolutely crucial for some people because it's a lived out experience which other things don't come close to competing with. The reality is that for some people it's the only way to the cross. Want to finish off this kind of reflection on why allows suffering with a quote from Corrie ten Boom. She was a person, a Christian who came through Auschwitz. And again, she's just a very powerful, insightful individual. You can never learn that Christ is all you need until Christ is all you have. I hope you don't need to know the profound insight of that statement. I hope I don't. I don't think suffering is something that you seek out to prove the depth and profoundness of your faith. But when you're in the position where you are looking heavenward and saying, what are you playing at? When you look at the way in which society, as well as individuals, reacts to suffering, it clearly brings out the worst in many, and it brings out the incomparable best in others. I don't think God allows suffering to do that, but I do think God uses it. Could he be using you in that way? Could you be going through things that you just don't understand, but in the very act of prevailing, like Job going through his suffering, but not condemning God? Can God use that in the lives of others where nothing else would work? I pray that your suffering is something that you can cope with and that mentally you can make sense of. If suffering robs you of hope and brings you to despair, it really is destroying your faith. But what I recognize from pastoral ministry of more than 25 years, the same thing that will destroy one person's faith will bring another to the cross and to that place of being on their knees in commitment. Beware of draconian conclusions about God's impotence and inadequacy because this has been allowed to happen or that's been allowed to happen. You don't know what God can do through people overcoming suffering. My apologies, I've gone on longer. I'm trying to make up for not doing one yesterday. The fact is, I'll make sure to do one for Wednesday. I hope Tuesday's made up for it. I know what I'm doing for Wednesday. I'm organised. I'm just really forgetful. Hopefully to see you. I hope to see you tomorrow. And until then, go with God. Because I know God goes with you. Even when it doesn't feel like it. Bye.